somewhat of a correlation. Is there a causative effect? Can we say that going on social media causes you to be depressed all the time? Not necessarily, but what we do see is that those who are on social media for longer periods of time, if you're spending a lot of time, excessive time on social media, and if you're using an increased amount of social media platforms, that does put you at an increased risk to feel some of the symptoms of depression, to feel loneliness, to feel anxiety, and to feel low and down.
Okay, so it could become a trigger.
It can become a trigger for some. If you're somebody that's already prone to depression to begin with, and you're on social media all the time, that can trigger a few things. And it also depends on how you're using social media as well. What are the reasons that you're using social media for? Those things are all important to keep in mind.
Okay, let's talk about how this sickness is diagnosed, right? Because I see so many people just come up to say, I think I'm depressed right now. And you also see somewhere in that caption, I think I'm sad. So it's a case of going through something or going through life. Probably life is a bit tough at that point, and then the post just goes out there, I'm depressed. So how is this depression diagnosed? Is it something I can wake up and tell myself I have depression?
If somebody feels that they have depression, the first thing I recommend is talk to a medical professional.
Okay.
The medical professional will actually diagnose the disorder. Okay. Usually if you're speaking to your primary care doctor or more so a psychiatrist, after talking to you, giving you a series of various questionnaires to complete, then they can make that clinical diagnosis based on certain symptoms that you may or may not be having.
Okay.
So it's not to brush off somebody who says, I'm depressed, and say, no, you're not. But it is to say that if you do think that you have depression, you need to seek help immediately and talk to someone in the medical field about it.
Okay, so what are the stages of this illness?
Stages of depression. Okay, so when we're talking about depression, the major thing that you're going to see are the symptoms of hopelessness and helplessness and sadness. Basically feeling depressed or having a low and sad mood most days than none. Okay, you'll have the feelings of feeling empty, guilty for no reason, feeling that there's no reason why you want to sometimes be in the world anymore. Another thing that is notable is that the things that you used to enjoy doing, you don't enjoy them anymore.
Okay.
So if you're somebody who used to enjoy, let's say, writing poetry all the time, that was your joy, that was your passion, you just don't want to write, you just don't want to do anything. Okay, you see a huge change in your behavior and your mood from prior, essentially. One thing to note and understand that there is an issue at hand is when it's difficult for you to go about your day-to-day living.
Okay, but when I say stages, I know there are some medical terms that will tell you, oh, your depression is still mild, or you've gotten to a state where you need almost 24 hours attention. So are there terms like that keeps this depression illness in stages? Okay,
so if you're talking about acute emergencies, the main emergency is if somebody has suicidal ideation.
Okay.
When it gets to a point when somebody says, I no longer want to live anymore, and they have an active plan, meaning that they've thought through what they want to do to harm themselves and end their lives, that is a major psychiatric emergency, and they would require inpatient evaluation and treatment.
Okay, so substance abuse, let's just delve into that, because sometimes when people are depressed, they decide to use substance to probably get themselves, since you talked about being low, they want to just get to a high stage, right? So how does this work hand in hand? Just touch more on substance abuse.
Okay, so some of the connections that you see with substance abuse and depression, there are sometimes comorbidities that you kind of see hand in hand. Sometimes when patients are depressed, they will use various substances to kind of try to self-medicate. A lot of the times with certain medications or illicit drugs, it can give patients or anyone under the influence a certain high that kind of removes them from whatever issue or problems they feel that they're experiencing in the world, to try to give them that escape that they want from the reality of this world. So sometimes you will see patients that do have depression delving into the world of substance abuse, illicit drug use, and whatnot.
So how is depression treated?
Depression, the mainstay treatment for depression is what we call SSRIs. It's a class of antidepressant medication, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And basically the mechanism of action is to pretty much increase the amount of neurotransmitter in the brain that's thought to be lower when you are depressed. So there are different classes of antidepressant medications, but based on whatever you're going through and your profile and other health conditions, your doctor or psychiatrist may determine what kind of medication they want you to be on. Another therapy that's used for depression is basically cognitive behavioral therapy. Sometimes patients undergo what we describe as talk therapy, speaking with a psychiatrist or psychologist about what exactly is going on and the things that are kind of triggering some of the issues and how to make day-to-day living doable.
Okay, so is it's depression preventable?
Is depression preventable? So there are things that you can do to make it, I guess I should say, less likely that you are going to go into a depressive state.
Okay.
So avoiding being isolated all the time, being around people, talking about your feelings and emotions. It puts the word out there that there can be something going on. But with that said, there are people who you would still not know, even if they're...
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, there are people we've seen that are very active, very cheerful for the life of the party, and then suddenly you hear they try to commit suicide. So does that really prevent anything?
I mean, it's not necessarily saying that that's preventative, but there's no 100% surefire way that you can prevent anything like that from happening, but you do take the measures to lower the likelihood of these things happening.
Okay, so let's talk about people around someone suffering from depression. I know as much as we want to take care of our own mental health, it is enough responsibility trying to take on someone who is going through the depression states. How do we handle it if you don't understand it? How do you say things that you're supposed to say and not say things that will trigger this person?
So one thing to do is to really be understanding. Don't be so judgmental if you do note that somebody is having a problem.
Okay.
And also just be there to actually listen to them. There are certain things that they may say or do that can be a red flag that something is up. You may see some changes or changes in the patterns of their behavior, and that would be a red flag to just really be there for them and just have that open and honest discussion about what's going on. My point about not being judgmental, oftentimes when you make somebody feel that there's something really wrong with them, it makes them want to kind of internalize and bottle in what they are going through. So somebody who's depressed needs to have somebody that they can trust to actually talk about their feelings and talk about their emotions. They need a go-to person so that they have that support system that they need to go on about their day-to-day life.
How often does depression lead to suicide?
That's really hard to say how often it's going to lead to suicide, but one thing to note.
Okay, let's talk about relationships, right? Because I just mentioned how people around them handle it. But when a depressed person goes into a romantic relationship, how can the significant other, I mean, it's clear this person is suffering from depression. How do you be the best partner for this person?
Okay, first and foremost, you have to make them realize that it's okay to open up, and if they need help them get to that source of getting the treatment that they need. With that said, I mean, by going to see your primary care doctor or psychiatrist.
Okay.
A lot of the times, like I said, people don't want to talk to a mental health professional or a medical professional about their depressive symptoms or their state because it makes them feel like, you know, they're going to be ostracized by the rest of society. So I think if you are in a romantic relationship, make your partner aware of the fact that it's okay to get the necessary treatment.
Okay.
Because sometimes, even if you are a support system for them, sometimes that just is not enough. Sometimes you do need that psychotherapy. Sometimes you do need that medication to help.
Okay, let's take it away from depression a bit to go into mental health proper.
Okay.
What would you advise anyone to do? Let's say, okay, give 3 tips on how to properly, like you said, it's not totally preventable, right? But how can one take care of the mental state?
Okay. So taking care of your mental state is something that you can do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
Is what we call self-care. Doing those things that can keep you upbeat in a more positive mood and just help your overall state of well-being. One thing that you can do that's key that you should be doing anyways is exercise. Exercise is good for the body and it's also good for you mentally as well. When you exercise, you have a whole lot of neurotransmitters and hormones like endorphins that are released into the brain that make you feel better. So that's one thing that you can do to feel better and boost your spirits. Also, another thing that you can do is meditate or pray. There have been, studies that have associated meditation with increasing your mood and well-being. The last thing I would say is really just find those activities that bring you joy or things that once brought you joy in the past, whether it's singing, dancing, engaging in a sport, just anything that you recognize that has brought you that kind of happiness in the past. Try to engage in those activities and try also not to be so isolated when you're engaging in those activities.
Okay. Let's talk about praying. You mentioned praying. And I know we're just talking about preventive measures, but we've seen cases of people suffering depression and then someone says, just pray. If you have faith in God, this would not happen. How would you address that?
So, because we understand that sometimes there is that need for medication, yes, of course, spirituality and prayer are great. However, there are times that you may not be able to, quote unquote, pray away medical conditions. Okay. So with that said, spirituality, prayer, those are wonderful things, but you should also seek treatment as well.
So depression is not a form of evil spirits.
Glad you brought that up. It's not a form of evil spirits by any means.
Okay.
It's a mental health disorder, and we need to basically call it exactly what it is. It's a psychiatric condition which people need to get the help that they require. There are no spirits or evil demons or witches or anything that are taking over the body. That's one of the myths that I've heard here in the country about the causes of depression.
Let's talk about social media addiction.
Okay.
I mean, we always go back, right? Why do you think so?
So a lot of the times when people go back, it's because there's an activation of reward pathways in the brain. Usually when we talk about any kind of addiction, what usually happens is that these reward pathways can increase the amount of neurotransmitters like dopamine that make you kind of feel good and happy. So it's rewarding when you go on social media and you see that you're getting lots of likes or followers. So for some people, that can be a trigger, that can be the reward to want to go back for more and more and more.
But you know, there are people who are not necessarily getting these likes and followers, but they're just there. Consuming content, watching people, giving this following
Of course,
some likes.
absolutely.
So what is their reward?
So for them, it's just feeling that they are a part of something and they're not missing out. I'm not sure if you heard of, FOMO, fear of missing out. Lots of times people go back for more and more because they feel like in their own life outside of the internet, maybe there's something in the internet that they're missing out on. So they have to go back and kind of see what everybody's up to and, keep abreast of things in that way.
Do you think the idea of social media being very mobile is one of the reasons for addiction, because you can carry it everywhere?
Of course, the rise of basically mobile technology just makes it easy to access anything just at a click of a button. Smartphones, they basically change the way we communicate worldwide. So I think that is a contributing factor for that easy accessibility to anyone at any time.
This easy accessibility, how is it affecting our physical health generally?
Physical health in general. So there are a few things that happen when you use social media or your smartphones a lot. So one of the things that we discuss or we talk about are overuse disorders. So sometimes, you know, these aren't real medical terms, but what we call selfie elbow, somebody who's always taking a selfie and lifting up the camera. Sometimes that overuse can cause strain to the elbows, to the joints, or text thumb, always texting can cause issues with some of the joints as well. Also, there's something that we call, what do you call it, text neck as well. So always looking down at your phone, that can change some of your, some issues with posture when you do that chronically over a long period of time. That amount of weight that you use when you're putting your head down, it affects the body as well.
So what is the statistics of these cases? I mean, you've talked about the thumb, which I think, oh, I talked about me, and then you've talked about selfie and then the neck. What is the percentage of people who are being affected by the frequent use of these devices?
So we don't have a lot of data on that available to give, you know, a rigid statistic about this is the percentage of people, but practitioners are seeing more and more patients coming into their offices complaining about these things. Like I said, these aren't medical terms, but these are things that we are seeing more and more of, and with time, as people do continue to use social media, surely we'll see a rise in it and a rise in chronic problems.
How can these chronic problems be curbed?
I mean, the obvious, reduce the amount of time that you spend on these, on your smartphone, on your electronics. You just have to basically do everything in moderation.
Okay, talking about physical health, I mean, you're a general health wellness expert.
Yes.
What would you say you have noticed in this part of the world that we do wrongly, that you know when you see it, you're like, don't you know this is going to affect your health?
So one thing is, I think there is not that much awareness on the way that certain medical conditions are actually caused. And by that I mean, when you're just talking about any medical condition at all, when I've had different conversations with various people here, they attribute certain medical conditions to sometimes, like we were talking about, mythical things that have no scientific basis or backing. So one thing I would recommend is with any medical problem at all, there needs to be more awareness. Really understand the cause of why the medical problem is happening, some of the symptoms to look out for, know when to get help and treatment.
Have you tried to work closely with any health institution here? And do you have anything to say about the state of the health system generally here in Nigeria?
Okay, the state of the health system needs a lot of rehabilitation, a lot of rehabilitation. When we talk about healthcare in Nigeria, the main issues usually are access to care. Okay, we need to have a healthcare system whereby when something is wrong, people actually have access to the treatment that they need. So moving forward, they can actually, you know, maintain their well-being. Also, another major issue is there's a lack of preventive services. Usually, in general, everyone should be having an annual medical evaluation whereby they're seen by their medical practitioner, they get their blood work done, and they just check on some key metrics, some baseline metrics to make sure that they're in a general good state of health. A lot of the times I notice here that people wait until it's pretty much too late, and then by that time, it's a critical situation. So health maintenance is key. Screening is key. Screening for certain cancers at various stages of life is key. There are certain things that people are just not doing, and it's not their fault at all, but it's just the way the healthcare system here has kind of been designed. Healthcare in Nigeria needs to be accessible to all people, and it shouldn't be a situation whereby if you need care, you're traveling abroad to get the care that you need. Because guess what? Not everybody has the ability to travel abroad to get that care, and it shouldn't be that way. In the country that you are living in, where you're from, you should have quality care all the time.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us at Plus TV Africa. All right, we've been talking to Dr. Nnesochi Okeke-Igbokwe, who is a physician and a health and wellness expert. She's enlightened us on depression and social media addiction. My name is Elsie Godwin. See you soon.
Which kind wire you gon' need to light up your light? Oh man, the quality wire. Now which kind cable you gon' need to light up your house? Oh man, the quality cable. Coleman quality. Coleman wire. Coleman durable. Coleman cable. Coleman can. Coleman cable for any kind of project. Coleman be the come and see. Come and be the Coleman won't light up your life. Come and be the come and see. Come and be the C-O-L-E-M-A-A. Quality, quality. Durable, durable. Now come and be the Baba.
Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, is a businessman, investor, and founder of Dangote Group. He was born in Kano, Nigeria in 1957. Dangote lost his father at a very young age, but this never deterred him from excelling. He recalls having a knack for business right from elementary school, where he sold cartons of sweet to make profit. He obtained his bachelor's degree in business studies and administration from Al-Azhar University in Cairo. Dangote Group, which started as a small trading firm, kicked off in 1977 with a seed capital of $3,000. Bello Jonathan. Forbes ranked him first place as the richest man in Africa. Dangote is married and has 3 children. And this is the Mogul in 90 seconds.
Country people, I greet on this very o'clock on a good morning. I thank on when Bison join us for news on the hour for Plus TV Africa. This one at the 31 Bison one time I giving on top this very o'clock. My name na Promise Nero. There's a gunman that show face for Daura kidnapped the father-in-law to the Oga Presido ADC. Then grab the victim Musa Umar when they say that the margarine Garindoro for in Daura house. Now they take Babam. Kasina not shortly after they observe a Madrid prayer. One talk person said the attackers should shoot so that the crowd feel run and so they grab the traditional ruler for one period 406. The traditional ruler when be said be the papa of Fatima Musa, wife of the Colonel Mohammed Abubakar, the aide-de-camp ADC to Oga President Muhammadu Buhari, and a retired custom comptroller when be said the Katsina State Command of the Police till they try to confirm the palaver. The Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria found not shut down the Gombe and Kebbi airport because of 800 million debt. The shutdown started from May 1st, 2019. Fan for the notice when they send give airmen NOTAM for the airport announced the withdrawal of men of safety and fire rescue and aviation security personnel when they attack and give the two airport. Fan give 2 weeks notice and they don't give the state government plenty time to settle their debt. They say they go shift the debt drive when they say that they many face go other airport after they don't touch like the Gombe and Kebbi one. The Imo State Governor, Rochas Okorocha, don't say the Independent National Electoral Commission not get the power to hold their certificate of return. Okorocha and the candidate of the All Progressive Congress for the February 23rd Imo West Senatorial election. For a petition to INEC on Tuesday, Okorocha say he not happy say the joint body hold the certificate of return. They titled the petition as need to avert abuse of office and political wuru by my political opponent with active collabo of INEC leadership where they take leg begay of the law. And at the Shemo of the commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu put hand for this one. Okorocha says Section 285(1) of the 1999 Constitution talks say they go arrange matter for the Federation for one more election tribunal when they go call the National Assembly Election Tribunal when they not join any court or tribunal. When they get original jurisdiction to hear and determine petition as whether any person don't be validly elected as member of the National Assembly. The Senate and the House of Representatives don't pass the 2019 budget enter law. They increased the budget by 86 billion naira from the 8.91681916 trillion naira when they say they proposed for the 2018 by Oga President Muhammadu Buhari. Ngige, Nigerian Minister of Labour and Employment, talks say Muhammadu Buhari now the country's most labor-friendly president. He talked this one inside one statement for Tuesday to mark the 2019 Workers' Day celebration. According to Ngige, the president did determine to create one economy where we say go bring sustainable abundance to the people. This year event where we say they call another 100 years of struggle for job, dignity and social justice for Nigeria. They manifest for inside the coincidence with the centenary celebration of the International Labour Organization, ILO, when Nigeria pioneered as the first country for Africa 60 years ago for Lagos. The International Workers' Day, when some people they call Workers' Day or Labor Day, or for some country, May Day, now the celebration of workers all over the world when they remember the role when trade unions and other labor movement they play. Today event, they offer workers another opportunity to appreciate themselves as well as call government to action, make them respond to their plenty working needs. Our talk person, Amaka Okoye, go the rally today and she get the report.
Has there been any?
I don't see anything different from what we've been experiencing before, the fight for the increment of salary. The labor force have lost its track long before now. I just believe they are there just bearing the name labor organization, and some group of persons put themselves in a war trying to do a paperwork, not fighting for the cause of their people. The problem of the labor force in Nigeria is not just about salary. What of the welfare of their people, their children, their wives? What are labor doing to all of this? They've lost track. You're fighting for 30,000 and that's what you're celebrating? What has that got to do for a man that has to pay school fees of 2 children in any of these universities?
Well, that's why they are saying that they have a message to the government, and until enough is done, they wouldn't keep silent.
What is enough there? What have they been fighting for, even before this issue of 30,000? There are schools that are shut down for almost 3 months, and these labor forces are there doing nothing.
What do you expect?
Hospitals are there, they are not functioning well. You're talking of paying a soul of this country an average of 1,500 naira a day, and you are celebrating that?
Now, some states all salaries, some like Taraba, Imo, and other states all entitlements to pensioners. So to what extent now do you think we would have a feasible working welfare for workers?
I don't think this labor that we are having this day will be able to do anything, because they are friends to some of these government agents, so tied in that call that they can't give a fight.
But we've seen all of the headlines and they've been fighting to
No, it's the people. The people and the political train that we were driving at that time, that was why it was that easy.
Now, you faulted the labor unions, but to what extent now do you expect the presidency and then state government as well to respond and do the needful when it comes to implementation?
Yes, I think we're going to depend more on the legislature. Those are the ones that might determine what happened to some of these laws that has been put in place. Yes, this president, we might want to do some certain things. Look, we're making a mistake here. The Paris form that was dished out was a loan. And if you dish out a loan to any of the state, the governor of that state, who is the administrator of that state, will determine where that money goes. You can't query it.
And talking about the welfare of workers, one of the pertinent issues that we've had so far, back and forth, is whether or not unionization should be allowed even in private organizations. What's your thought on this matter?
You see, now, I don't see this body. I don't see them doing the work of the people anymore. They've long gone. They overstayed their time. Unless somebody comes and re-examine the practice of that organization, that is when you can put in anything. As long as this group of persons are there, we can move. Come up with any theory, you can't get anything right.
Okay.
Since after 2007, Labour is there.
Okay, so you're talking about the NLC, ULC, as well as the TUC.
Sure.
Okay, but in your last words now, irrespective of the challenges that Nigerians face, what's your word to the Nigerian worker out there to continue to be resilient?
They just need to, like we're used to, continue to pray, hoping that a section or a sector of the activist institution will wake up one day and address some of these challenges for us.
Thank you
but
very
to depend on this labor force.
Our talk person, Amaka Okoye, go the rally yesterday and she get the report.
To mark the Workers' Day celebration, comrades from the United Labour Congress of Nigeria, other unionists, workers, and members of other action groups walked through the streets, chanting, singing in solidarity. While the day calls for celebrations, comrades explain what the day is to them and its essence and their expectations.
Year in, year out, we come together at least to reappraise how far we have, how good, how bad we have gone, and then take a new commitment, take a new mandate, to forge ahead. It wouldn't have been like this, if we were not meeting every year to ask questions. Workers come up to demonstrate, to come out with banners, to come out with placards, to raise those issues that have been silent, which the leadership may not be aware, and we normally take them up.
There are not much to be celebrated for today, but because it is a workers' day, and this is our day, we must embrace one another. We must interact with one another. We must rejoice with one another, despite our working in a very hardship condition. But nevertheless, we are taking advantage of today to send messages to government, to politicians, and to the lax minds of the stakeholders in Nigeria, that the workers in Nigeria that create wealth, we have some challenges, and this is our day. We want a situation whereby everybody will know that we are not leaving things unturned.
While acknowledging that all is not yet done, they express hope that workers' welfare will be completely well catered for someday.
I expect the government to give us all our rights, all the things we've been demanding for, and I expect more women